Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to our Fringe Waste Not Want Not Planning and Waste Infrastructure. I'm Natalie Evans and I'm Deputy Director at Policy Exchange. And we're delighted to see so many of you here, as waste and planning, as we know, are two hugely controversial issues for local people. But how can we move beyond the tabloid headlines to have a more sensible debate about the future of resource management? The Coalition's ambition to get to zero waste to landfill will require huge investment, and in our current age of austerity, how are we going to achieve this? So to answer these intractable, potentially, dilemmas, we have an expert panel with us today. First of all, we have David Palmer-Jones, who's Chief Executive Officer of Sita UK, which is part of the Global Sewers Environment Group, and David is also a non-executive director of RAP. At the end there we have Robert McIlveen, who's a Policy Exchange representative and has written our seminal work, A Wasted Opportunity. At the end down there we have Rob Crumbie, who is Director of Marketing and Comms at RecyleBank, and very kindly joining us is Councillor Ros Wright, who's leader of the Liberal Democrat group on Norwich City Council and sits on their Waste Management Working Party. So what we're going to do is have some comments from our panellists, and then as usual we'll open up to questions and hopefully a vigorous discussion. So first of all I'm going to hand over to David.
Well, good evening ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you here today. I've come here sensibly to do three things. I'm going to give you a vision, I'm going to tell you what's stopping us reaching that vision, and I'm going to give you a solution. So I'm not come empty-handed, I'm going to give you a solution of how we can make this vision a reality. Now then, let me paint you a picture. It's the usual thing to start with. It's not a very pretty picture, but it's a picture that's used quite often in the media when they talk about waste. A large landfill site, deep and unsorted waste. The mechanical compactor rolls across, and seagulls or birds who are picking and scavenging fly up into the air. I add that isn't a Sita site, obviously. It's probably a competitor's site, but that's the image that we have of our industry. And if I add the first Cllr statistic of this evening, 50 million tonnes of waste still goes to landfill today in the UK. 50 million tonnes. Half of everything from industry and commerce and the municipal sector still goes to landfill. That is the largest form of treatment that we have in the UK. Now, that's not Sita's vision. Sita's vision is we want to live in a society where there is no more waste. Waste becomes a resource. We give waste a second life. We really utilise it. Now, what would a society that look like? Well, I think first of all we try and engineer out waste, we try and minimise waste. We certainly start to reuse things a little bit more, and we don't mend anything anymore. We just purchase things. I think we do a lot of recycling, a lot more recycling. And I think we would try and recover energy from residue that's left. Now, I think that our vision, Sita's vision, is not too dissimilar to the Liberal Democrats' vision or the Coalition vision. I'm pretty sure that we all want the same thing. Unfortunately, something blocks us achieving that, and it is quite simply planning. I'll give you the second Cllr statistic of the evening. For us to move 50 million tonnes of waste out of landfill to some better use in materials to become energy, we would need as a nation to grant one planning permission for that type of facility every week for the next 10 years. That is the enormity of the challenge that faces the UK in order to move from a landfill-based treatment country to something much better. Now, there are, I can see some politicians in the room, and I'm not going to pretend that planning is an easy thing to deal with, and I'm sure local councillors, if they ever have one of these facilities mooted or rumoured to come into their area, will no doubt be berated by the local community. But what I would say to you is that it's a community need, it's the community's waste, it's not Sita UK's waste, which is often the thought behind that. I think it's also the community's responsibility to deal with that waste. Now I come to the solution. So communities' waste, communities' responsibility, why not communities' benefit? If we are going to move to a different form of society, my opinion is that we need to incentivise building this infrastructure within those communities. We need to reconnect with those communities in a completely different way. I think we could take some parallels from perhaps some other industries. I think the wind industry, in terms of renewables, starts to do some quite interesting things in terms of incentives, in terms of giving the final turbine to the local community to create a fund. And that's exactly what I think we need to do for other forms of waste infrastructure. So I think these funds can be created locally. I think they should be controlled by the local communities, voted on by the local communities for the benefit of the local communities. Now, options for using that money is for the community to decide, but there are lots of different images. PCs for the school, I don't know, parks, energy has been mooted. That certainly would move us, it would certainly move us forward. So, in summary, I've given you the vision. It's not just Sita UK's vision, it's our vision. No more waste. I've told you what the problem is. It is absolutely planning that's stopping us doing this. My company is ready to invest sizable amounts of money, and to do this infrastructure change, I think the country is looking at £15 billion, and we certainly will take our share in that. And the solution is reconnect with your communities, without a doubt, but incentivise them, give them the benefit of hosting those facilities.
Thank you, David. Robert.
Thank you. Can I take the opportunity to reiterate the report, but also the subtitle of that, which is how to get the most out of Britain's bins. And that was really looking at both environmentally and economically. So in many ways, the waste industry, as becoming the resource management industry, has historically overlooked the value of the materials in our waste stream, the value of it to the economy. So it's something that really we do need to address. Household waste is a surprisingly small proportion of the overall waste stream. I was really surprised when I started working on this project just how low it is. I think it's about 9%, I think, of the overall waste stream. And when most householders think of it, they just want it taken away and something done to it. People don't tend to be that concerned with the processing end of it, for ordinary householders. And this has a slightly funny effect on the politics, really, because it all seems to be about the collection, until, of course, you have an incinerator or an energy waste plant mooted in your local area. It's all really been about the collection up to now, which in the grand scheme of things is actually probably less important than what we actually do to deal with the waste once we've collected it. Waste also is really important for local government. This is something that came out very strongly out of the project, that for a lot of councils it's one of the biggest services they provide, especially for district council in two-tier areas. It's absolutely huge. And it's one of those things, because absolutely everyone uses their waste service and everyone is affected when it changes, the political sort of risk attached to it is surprisingly high. Localism and community buy-in, I think this is a theme we're all touched on. It actually can be very helpful to recognise the differences between places. Different communities have very different needs and capabilities when it comes to waste and resource management. Where I live, as I'm sure in parts of Liverpool, it's very hard actually to recycle. We don't have a recycling service, and a very sort of high density population, where it's basically very hard to get people to separate. That's very different to sort of leafy suburbia, where you can demand more of people and approach it very differently. Dealing with their waste will be sort of an everyday thing, a social norm for how you should separate. In sort of dense urban environments, it's just not on the agenda. And I think recognising that is actually quite crucial to working out what we can do with waste from different communities. The planning and consent system, as David mentioned, is entirely unconducive to actually delivering anything and making people happy about that. And I'd absolutely echo his thoughts on incentives. It's for people to host waste infrastructure. I actually live very near quite a large incinerator in southeast London, and to be honest, it doesn't actually have that much effect on me. But had I been living there and owned my flat when it was built, I'm sure I'd be up in arms with placards. So I think it's very important to work out how we can actually get people being positive about hosting infrastructure. One interesting thing that we might want to talk about later is whether any sort of compensation scheme is through the local council or whether it's more direct to households, neighbourhoods or communities. I think that's something that sort of runs through the whole localism debate that hasn't necessarily been entirely clear. On infrastructure needed to end landfill, I do think it's possible to largely eliminate landfill. And there are three parts to the answer really. More recycling. There's definitely a lot more scope to recycle through better design of collection systems, better incentives, and just driving it forward. There's a lot of potential, especially in the small and medium enterprise sector is an area we've identified as really need a lot of potential because they get a pretty poor service from councils, and it's quite difficult to work out how to incorporate them. One really important aspect is the market for recycled materials. Now, this is where focusing on the collection side has its downfall. In 2008, as the global economy nosedived, materials prices went with it, and actually for a lot of materials the price went negative, which can have all sorts of ramifications when it comes to recycling materials and then trying to sell them and make a profit on it. And recognising that's really important when you're trying to design your collection system. Similarly, the importance of quality in what you're collecting has a direct trade-off with the simplicity for the householder. And none of these are very easy things to resolve. Plastics are the ultimate example. No one, I still don't know which plastics I can recycle. I've written a report on the subject. And working out how to make it as simple as it can be, while still getting the quality of materials that you can actually economically do the best you can with them is really challenging. Energy from waste is the most controversial infrastructure, I'm sure most people in the room would agree. But it is likely to be essential if we're serious about eliminating landfill. There are always going to be some parts of the waste stream that cannot be separated, especially high density urban neighbourhoods. It's going to be really, really hard. And I think this is something that the planning system is going to have to really tackle. The classic example of the Belvedere incinerator in South East London that took 15 years to get through planning is just absolutely absurd, just how difficult the planning system makes it. Ironically, the Planning Act, which may well be subject to being revised, has a waste infrastructure is included, or energy for waste plants are included if they're over 50 megawatts, so you can be fast-tracked if you build a large enough plant, which has the perverse impact of encouraging everyone to build really, really large incinerators that no one will be happy with, whereas if you a smaller, more neighbourhood-sized facility slightly more obviously should be more acceptable, and it's such a very perverse impact, which I hope will be revisited. I'd also like to say a word about anaerobic digestion. This was very sort of exciting at the time of writing the report, and I think we're still getting very excited about it. And it has huge potential for food waste if you have a neighbourhood where you can do a collection system that people can handle having food collection separately. It's really exciting, but there is a risk of people getting very overexcited about it. It is a very complicated technology. You have to have markets for the end product, which is often overlooked. With biogas, it's great. I mean, National Grid's work on it does suggest that you could develop that market, but it's not as simple as just saying, we've got some gas, here you go. So it is a really challenging thing. I think people need to be very aware that it could turn out, it has to be done properly, rather than just everyone getting overexcited and building anaerobic digestion that never actually does anything. As a side note, Scandinavian buses apparently run on biogas from the sewage system, so AD can be used for actually really good purposes if you have the right system. And actually, I suspect sewage might be easier than waste, but I'm not an expert. So in conclusion, it is possible to end landfill. It's within our technological capabilities. It requires some really tough choices. It is inevitably going to involve energy from waste. And I think the fact that this is something that will be controversial with a lot of groups, a lot of local groups, have to recognise that the planning system doesn't help that and think about how we can get through that. We can recycle more, and there are some really exciting things that can be done around recycling, but it is challenging and it does vary. I'll end there.
Great, thank you, Robert. Rob?
Thank you. So pleasing to hear incentives mentioned by both my previous speakers. Because at RecyleBank we have a vision, and that vision is that every person living in every household could and should be able to be rewarded for green behaviours in some way, shape or form. And with RecyleBank we have a credible alternative now to increase household recycling beyond capacity, beyond education, beyond awareness. We work on a basic three-step principle in RecyleBank. It's about recycling, recording and then rewarding people in a household level, and that positive reward leads to increased recycling. So we offer three basic elements to a local authority. We can help increase recycling, we can help improve the local environment, And quite uniquely, we're also able to help the local business and create economic development in a time when we face a lot of hardship. Now, we all know that we've achieved those landfill targets this year, but we know that we can do so much more, and RecyleBank's a proven programme which we think will help increase that even further. So what does RecyleBank offer? I'm very wary that it's a young product in a very mature market. It's a business that was built 5 years ago in the US and moved to the UK 18 months ago. And what it really offers is an innovative approach for councils, residents and the local economy to help improve recycling. From a council's perspective, we aim to generate cost savings in most situations through the length of a contract. Quite pertinent in these current times. But also we develop local economies, and through the rewards that are earned by local residents are able to spend money, spend their rewards within the local economy, supporting local jobs, supporting local independent traders. What's in it for residents? Residents are incentivised. They receive on average £135 of value per year in rewards and vouchers. It's a unique opportunity to empower residents to improve their local economy, and that's a motivating factor that we're very proud of. What's a gift to the local economy? Well, RecyleBank offers both local and national rewards to the local economy, meaning that butchers, bakers, pharmacists, restaurateurs, beauty salons, and our national partners like Marks & Spencer and Coca-Cola can see their rewards spent in local town centres, supporting that local economy and helping to protect local jobs. It's also the first time that local businesses have an opportunity to help motivate people to recycle at home, and that's really important and quite powerful for bringing together an important group of people. So I guess the question is, does it work? Or how does it work, more importantly? Think of RecyleBank as a nectar or a club card, but for recycling. It's a voluntary opt-in scheme. So far in the UK, it has relied on a model that relies on chips in bins, but as we all know, there's probably more information in a phone book than there is on a chip on a bin outside your house. But we have solutions that will help work with the infrastructure we have out there in the UK at the moment, whether it's an individual wheelie bin, a box or a sack, reflecting the fact that we have a very diverse nature of collection methods in the UK at the moment. Recycling is collected, it's weighed, or participation is registered and turned into points. And those points are then turned into rewards by individuals. But simply, the more you recycle, the more you benefit. Those rewards are then redeemed locally, helping to support that local economy. So I guess the next logical question is, does it increase consumerism? Well, we have no evidence to say that increasing your recycling, or being rewarded for it, increases consumerism. And in fact, actually, we actively cap our participants' points to ensure that you don't recycle too much. But importantly, and from a serious perspective, as households are facing much more harder times financially, we saw a report a few weeks ago with 4 million households in the UK with no single person working. In this sector, we're seeing that people are turning to reward programmes to help support their weekly shop. And certainly schemes like Nectar, Club Card, those who distribute vouchers and coupons are seeing their redemptions increase. And certainly this is where we're also seeing the same trend with RecyleBank. RecyleBank also offers a Green Schools programme, a programme that allows residents to donate their points to turn into grants to help local projects work in schools. So does it work in the UK? Well, yes, so far our evidence is that it does, and it does offer a viable opportunity and an option. It works alongside service changes, where local authorities change their bin collection. It also works alongside where extra capacity has already entered the market and is layered on top. I'm going to give you an example from just down the road from here in Runcorn and Widnes, Halton Borough Council. In 2009, the borough invested quite heavily in changing the service from boxes to bins. And spent a reasonable amount of money on education and awareness, including a doorstepping campaign to build understanding of the local residents. But they didn't want to stop there, and in mid-2009 started talking to RecyleBank about aligning the RecyleBank programme into Halton Borough Council. By October 2009, 10,000 households were invited to participate, and I'm proud to say that during that 6-month trial, those 10,000 households regularly and consistently increased their recycling levels by 60%. Not only that, they recycle more frequently as well, and the awareness and the incentive that rewards gave has generated a big return for the borough, such to the point the borough has now rolled out the programme to all 47,000 households, at the same time as we equally saw a similar borough rollout in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. In Halton, we signed up over 100 local businesses, the butchers, the bakers, the pharmacists, the chemists, as reward partners. And those reward partners saw redemptions and saw trade coming into their stores, which they wouldn't have done without RecyleBank rewards. Rather encouragingly, the local swimming pool in Runcorn offered a free swim, and that was one of the most popular rewards, and unsurprisingly. But it linked where an environmental benefit can also become a health benefit as well. For me, as a Director of Marketing and Communications, I felt that the biggest piece of feedback we had from this trial was that it was easy. We spoke to 10,000 people, and those that responded to us, 96% said that RecyleBank would be recommended by them to their friends and family. Now imagine being a local authority having a frontline service that people are recommending. I think that's a massive step forward. So in terms of what the future looks like, I think RecyleBank offers some infrastructure opportunities to work alongside the current recycling collection methods that are there in the UK. And as we reach October with the challenges that we know will be forthcoming, we can offer solutions to work alongside individual wheelie bin collections, boxes and also sacks. But for us as well, to answer the question, can we end landfill? As a business, we're not just stopping there. Over in the States and the City of Philadelphia, we're working with the mayor there on a waste minimisation trial in the north of the city. And that's very much where RecyleBank wants to end up. But RecyleBank knows that we have to take this in steps. We have to get people recycling. There is more to recycle. And with education and incentives to recycle, incentives to minimise waste will come alongside as well. Innovatively as well, we're also working in Chicago to reduce energy. And we're working with the Chicago Utility Board to reduce the consumption of gas and water. So from a carbon perspective, RecyleBank is very much looking towards the future. So just to sum up, I just wanted to conclude with the fact that RecyleBank is talking to 25 local authorities now with a view to running that programme into 2011. It's going to be a very exciting year and a lot more people are going to get access to the programme. And through that, we're going to help local authorities to reduce their cost. We're going to increase recycling, improve the local environment, help local businesses, but more importantly, coming back to our vision, we're going to be able to reward people for green behaviours. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Right, I'm going to hand over to Ros now, who's just going to make a few comments on the presentations that we've heard so far.
Yes, I won't take up much time because I know you're probably all bursting to ask lots of questions, and I think we should hear from you what you think is the best approach. I was going to say that this is a massive topic of discussion. I'm sure we could sit here all night discussing it, and you know, any one of these specifics could be a massive debate. And I don't want to go into the details of the issues that have been discussed, but I'm very heartened to hear all the speakers talk about community engagement and motivation, because I think that is so key to getting people to change behaviour and to manage waste effectively. And also it sits very neatly with the localism agenda that Nick was articulating, beginning to articulate earlier, and that we've got a debate on tomorrow. So there's all of that going on as well. So it's in the coalition government's proposals. Natalie asked a question at the beginning about how do we manage, you know, waste in an age of austerity on perhaps a reused shoestring. And I've got a few suggestions, just leaving aside the sort of planning issues and incinerators and everything else. For a start, I think we need to be minimising our waste, you know, and that doesn't cost anything. And mending things, and we have now got the facility to, you know, recycle furniture, recycle clothes, send to enterprises who can remake and reuse. That doesn't cost much money. Also, I think we've been trying to do this in Norwich, but a well thought out contract, waste contract, where, for example, you can add on food waste or other forms of collection to your existing systems. What we've tried to do in Norwich, I think we're doing, is to use existing lorries to add on food waste. So it doesn't cost extra to do it. You've already got the vehicles there to do it. Is also something that you can do. And the other thing I was going to say is I think it's really important that you can do something with the products of your waste management. So, for example, providing fuel or electricity off the back of your facility if you recycle. So those are my thoughts. I'm from Norwich City Council, and I'm not there to kind of blow their trumpet or anything like that. But we have been increasing our recycling rates quite significantly. So I'm not absolutely sure the latest figures are. I think it's up to 35%, but we were on 18 like 3 years ago. So it has gone up pretty steeply, and we're hoping to get it up to 50% pretty soon. But I think we should hear from them.
Okay,
yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Right, we'll now open up to questions. If you could raise your hand if you'd like to ask anything, and if you could just say your name and where you're from before your question, that would be much appreciated. Okay, lady over there.
Hi, my name is Beth Fair. I'm from the Institution of Civil Engineers. I have two questions for both panelists, but I will make them quick. My first question is for David. At the institution, we're somewhat worried that planning for waste facilities and localism might be slightly at odds with each other. You seem rather comfortable with that. Do you have any concerns about localism and planning for waste facilities? And if I could just quickly go to Rob. The institution is doing a State of the Nation report on waste that both Policy Exchange and Sita were kind enough to give evidence to, which we greatly appreciate. You spoke about chips in bins. I mean, obviously that is a hugely political issue, and I was just wondering what your thoughts are on overcoming that to making recycling bag a more successful program. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm glad I didn't get the chips for bins.
You can answer that one as well if you like.
Localism. Well, I think, planning is a local issue. And if we don't absolutely reconnect with our communities, my colleague here was talking about thresholds for large-scale incinerational power plants of 50 megawatt driving long behaviour. I think that if we are going to reach the vision that we really want to, we all want to reach, then we will have to connect with those communities. I gave you an option, an idea, a solution to try and do that. I honestly believe that you're going to have to give those communities some form of benefit for them to host those facilities. Absolutely. So I don't see it as at odds, but what we can't do is have very strong national policy, which comes from the coalition, extremely strong policy in terms of what we should do with our waste, which is very much in line with our vision, and then a disconnect. We have to start reconnecting those communities with those decisions, and I see the way to do it is through benefit.
Thank you. Rob?
Chips. That wasn't meant in a gastronomic sense, clearly. I think it's a valid point, and it's one that I would have been disappointed had it not been raised earlier, clearly. In terms of chips and bins, and from a serious perspective, we operate three types of systems. One of which requires a chip in an individual wheelie bin, others which have reader tags. Ultimately, the chip is probably that big, that thin, sits under the lip, and the majority of people don't actually realise they're there. However, what I would say is that they do not do anything else but identify a bin with a particular house. They can't tell what's in the bin, they can't tell what you've bought, when we rolled out the RecyleBank project in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead to 47,000 households, we had 2 people say they didn't want the bin because they had a chip in it. Now, whatever you do in life, there's always going to be somebody who says, I don't want to participate. I think, for any of us that may have a Nectar card in our wallet, Tesco Club card, an Oyster card, or even have your phone switched on right now, you're being tracked more heavily than that chip will ever be able to achieve. And as I said, there's more information about you as an individual in the phone book, in the public domain, than what they can garner from a chip in a bin. So we're very comfortable, but we do operate 3 different models, one of which relies on that, and others which rely on even lower frequency technology, which allows us to still reward and get people increasing their recycling.
Thank you.
Thanks. Ewan Cameron, Islington, London Borough. No stranger to the waste management industry. Up until very recently, I represented some 900 waste management staff in London Borough of Southwark on behalf of Unison. Our contract was actually originally your company's some time ago. I think that there is a problem, there is a huge problem within inner London, how we, so the wider we, get the recycling rates up in high density housing. At the moment in Southwark, which has some 64,000 high density council properties, we have individual waste and recycling staff walking around landings, going downstairs, carrying individual boxes of recycling. The cost alone in collecting that is huge, and it doesn't get the bang for the buck. I think we need to move towards technology to enable commingled waste to be collected from high density properties. We need to have local facilities, certainly in London, where we have vehicles from Westminster dumping in South London the amount of vehicle miles alone and the pollution that's causing must be stopped. We need to get our heads together. Local government needs to be an active partner in that. Certainly as a previous chair of a planning authority in Islington, we need to take part, we need to take an active part, be cooperative in that, and almost get rid of the politics of it. And perhaps it does require a rewriting of the Town and Country Planning Act in order to do that. Get the same permitted development for waste that the mobile phone companies have for their masts.
Yeah, sure. As the incinerator I live near is the one all the west of
Cllr.
Yeah. And it is really hard actually. I'm surprised actually until they have people going around the landings, because I live in a ground floor flat and I don't have any recycling at all, so I actually carry it into Cllr to go to a public bring back. But yeah, it is really, really difficult. I think commingled is almost certainly going to be the only way you're likely to get anywhere in high density areas, although possibly you could have more innovative solutions, possibly on a sort of bring bank basis, if you could combine that with the incentive scheme, which I presume is possible in some manner. That may be one area to get people to do it, but it is just recognising that it is actually pretty hard. If you live in a small flat, you don't really have space for sort of 3 different bins in your kitchen, and I think it is really important for us to recognise that it is actually much harder in urban areas than it is in sort of leafy suburbia. Commingled, I absolutely agree. I think it's great if you can get people to separate for you, where it's feasible, but in some areas it just isn't necessarily. And traffic, managing it is really important. In London, actually, the interesting one is the amount of river transport, certainly from the sort of western river boroughs, which is a very sensible use of the river space. And it is a challenge. I wouldn't fancy trying to build a waste an installment size plant in Westminster, but who knows.
I resonate with Ewan's points, and despite being a marketeer, I would. Oh, sorry.
No.
Despite being a marketeer, I've been in the yard at 6 o'clock in the morning with the guys going out, and I've been and walked those landings, and I kind of know exactly where you're coming from that perspective, which was a very interesting experience. In terms of Robert's point of linking up incentives to high-rise flats and people living in a multiple occupancy situation, we are in discussions. We have a solution that will go into market in 6 weeks' time in the UK to address exactly that issue. So we very much want to bring that to the fore. I think when we did the analytics around it, recycling in flats in London can be as low as 5 to 8%. I think there's massive potential, massive opportunity, and if there's an area in which we can help incentivise people on a community level, it's tough to do it on an individual level, but on a community level to actually recycle. We're not talking about increasing recycling, just talking about recycling. Then I think within 6 weeks there will be a RecyleBank product in the market which allows people to be incentivised to recycle in a flat situation, because we know that's where a huge opportunity lies, especially within London, through our discussions with the bodies.
You preempted something that we see as one of the big issues to tackle and increase recycling. And we're going to launch, as Sita going to sponsor, an international event in London, so I'll give you an invite. And we're pulling the foremost exponents of this type of recycling from multi-occupancy flats, which we see as a major issue for the capital and for other large urban cities together.
It's a huge safety issue for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to do that. I'll give you an invite. Lord Henley's coming to open it, so it's going to be a very interesting event. And we're going to produce a booklet which hopefully starts to spread some information back to local communities to see what we can do. I worked a long time in Scandinavia. I came back, as you can hear, full of visionary ideas for the UK. They had a system which was quite interesting. It was based on more like a bring system, where there was a local point of collection, like a bring system, but it was slightly better than a bring system. It was in some form of housed accommodation where people came from the flats to recycle those particular products. It also became a bit of a community point of communication between the people in the community. And I come back to your point about communication. Communication with customers, extremely important. The other absolutely most important thing when you're dealing with recycling to improve recycling percentages is that you need to not restrict the ability for people to recycle. So the schemes that we run that are most successful have no restriction on the amount you can leave. Now that's difficult in that situation. It was interesting to hear what Rob was saying in terms of what can be achieved. It can be achieved, it is achieved in other parts of Europe. That's why I was very keen to bring people to the UK to come and start showing what you actually can do, and I will give you a personal invite to come.
Right, we've got a number of people wanting to ask questions, so I'm going to ask this gentleman here and that gentleman there if you could both ask a question, and then we'll go to the panel with both. So if you'd like to start.
Right, okay. EMANDA's Combined Heat and Power Association, which is the Trade Association for District Heating and CHP, and also I was a councillor in Kingston with responsibility for waste collection. My point is really to compare us with Scandinavia, with Sweden in particular. And I was in Malmo recently, and Malmo, which calls itself Manchester of Sweden, they have a municipal-owned mass burn incinerator, which covers the kind of sub-region, and that's in the urban area. There are houses around it, and that facility provides not only electricity to the grid, which is sold with profit, but also it provides all the heat which is required in the buildings in that particular city. So there's a complete community link there, a community benefit from that particular facility. They achieve 60% recycling, which, as has been said by David Palmer-Jones, is on a BRING basis, which is not, a Scandinavian BRING basis. And there is a facility which is totally integrated with the community and has no community opposition at all to it. So we have all the worst elements really in the UK, the way, where there is a lack of engagement with the community, and we need to look in some ways more perhaps than being suggested, that the community can actually directly benefit from a human waste facility.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman there.
Thank you. Matt Thompson from the Royal Town Planning Institute. It won't surprise you to hear that perhaps the RTPI doesn't believe that it's actually planning or the planning system that stands in the way of delivering the vision. That it's rather political values, community values, if you like, that are what's standing in the way. I'm not saying the planning system is necessarily perfect. There's room for improvement. But we talk about incentives as a way of trying to facilitate waste infrastructure. We already have a system of incentives, if you like, through Section 106 agreements that brings community benefits for example, housing development, and that hasn't necessarily made housing development the most popular thing, and housing doesn't necessarily have the same kind of impacts or perceived impacts that waste necessarily has. One of the questions that we have is whether incentivising waste infrastructure actually reinforces the negative image that waste infrastructure has, and isn't it better to persuade people that actually, as I think Robert made the point, that these things don't actually have the impacts on the local communities that people think they have? Isn't that a better way forward to engage with?
Okay, thank you. David, would you like to?
I'll answer yours first, because it's especially on my mind. I think you make a good point about 106. I don't think it is the negative connotation between the two. I don't honestly believe that to be the issue. I think it's going to be very difficult. I agree with you completely that it can't be in isolation. Incentives alone are not the only issue. I think they will certainly assist us to move to where we want to be. I think communication, it's funny, when we show people around, often they are people who are against some of the facilities that we have built, gone through planning and built, and they come round the facility, and often from energy from waste facilities you have, they say, isn't it clean? Now these plants are highly sophisticated energy plants, and we shouldn't associate it from perhaps 40 or 50 years ago of small scale municipal incinerators that weren't so great. So I think you have to educate the public about what these facilities really are. And as I say, we have great success when we can actually show people what they do. Again, it's a new infrastructure to the UK, so we're battling against having to try and make people understand. So I think it's a bit of communication, a lot of local commitment, a lot of local contact, and then incentivisation. I know CSAB very well, who's the company you're discussing in Malmo. And again, I come back to this point about incentivisation. The reason there is a connection, they are connected physically to the plant. The houses are connected physically to low cheap energy, and hence there isn't an anti-feeling whatsoever. They actually want that facility. That facility is in the town centre, and they want it to be in the town centre because it's more efficient, because it's less to go in terms of the heat extraction. So I think there you have a physical incentivisation. What I'm talking about is to try and mirror that in the best way that we can in the UK, which is to create some form of local funding.
Yeah, I agree on this issue of providing incentives. And you almost need to sort of complete the cycle, don't you? You show that something good is coming out, it's going back into the community, and the more direct the link, the better. I actually want to just comment briefly on what this gentleman here said about the high density waste management and recycling, because we've been as flexible as we possibly can be in Norwich to accommodate everybody, basically on a sort of almost street by street basis, having a different scheme if necessary. So we've got sort of robust bags in some places, communal bins in others, if wheelie bins aren't appropriate, and all the way through consulting with people, all the way through. And I think considering the amount of change they've had to go through in the last few years, there have been very few complaints. So the whole bringing in of the alternate weekly collection and all the different changes with that buy-in, that local buy-in, and with that allowance of flexibility in different areas, that's really achieved the success that we've managed to get.
I want to pick up on the directness of the incentives, so I think that addresses both. Section 106 obviously has its place, but I think if you're a local householder, you may not really see any of that, which is the problem with it. And this is the whole localism point. Localism isn't just local government, it's about local neighbourhoods, local communities, which is one of the Swedish example is so successful. CHP is absolutely a great way you can do it, especially when you can build it in at the start, when you're retrofitting it spread, I suspect.
Of course, Cllr is in the middle of an urban area with all those flats that could be connected up to it.
Yes, quite. Quite bitch about that. So yeah, so there is a limit to incentives, but I think the more direct they are, the better they are, because if it goes to your local council, which you may have, whatever your opinion of it may be, it's going to be very filtered before it gets to you, especially if you're someone living next to it and you're getting the same benefits on the other end of the borough. That's a really big definition of council level incentives. So the more direct, the better, really.
Okay. Right. Okay. I'll take another couple of rounds. The gentleman at the back and the lady there, if you'd like to start, sir.
Yeah, Brian Hayden from Harrogate. First of all, I think and town planning chapter, you have to tell me, I think the 106 agreement is actually on hold because it was going to be changed to Community Investment Fund, but I think it is on hold, which means the same thing, but the developers just pick things that the community would want rather than 106, which goes to the local authority and they decide infrastructure. Second thing is, in terms of new build, and we all heard Nick today announce that local authorities will get more power, and one of those is planning. They will get more power on planning. The obstacle or the elephant in the room is not planning per se, it's the politicians. We all know that. I was one of them. But there is a fast track for energy security reasons. The Mayor of London is working with the London Recycling Board to actually develop this, and I think they're finding out that ED is not panacea of everything, which I'm surprised considering the people who are on that board and their skills. The MVAC system that works, that's in Wembley, I think that's a very good system for high-rise blocks, flats. It's a vacuum system. It's all new. It's new in terms of England. It's actually up and running in new build, and I think it works really well. And I've seen it in action, and you can't get a sofa down there, so it's good for flats. Hackney did a trial some years ago in terms of rocket recycling on an estate, and it brought the community together. There was a product that went back to the community. The local voluntary sector group that developed it actually employed people from the estate, so it actually brought jobs to the local community. That's a fantastic incentive from a political point of view. So there are things out there being done. In terms of where we are now, I think with the policy of giving more power to local authority, especially to borrow money, local authorities will start to look at building houses. What we have to do in planning legislation is make sure they put those things in place, like shell should have been connected up. The length of time it took to build it and go through all the planning and the legal challenges, they could have connected up houses. There are several local authorities outside of central London that are already connected up and see the benefit and have no problem with it. I think that is probably the way to go. The question I have for David is, I'm heartened to hear that you are going to talk to the local community about giving something back. That's fantastic. Your literature has one line in it. You need to make it bigger. I welcome it. I think it's great. It has one line in the back saying, and I'll highlight it so I can bring it to attention.
Test me there.
Community off take. That's all it says. What you've said to here today is fantastic. Put it in the blurb. Thank you.
I think I'll just make one quick to Brian and over on North London. But I mean, we did help Policy Connect put forward some ideas around infrastructure. We think it's very, very important for the industry.
Lady there, and as David's answered the question, if is there a couple more hands up? Okay, I'll take that lady there and the gentleman at the back.
Susan Junaid, now I'm an independent consultant, used to be with NISP and the local government, the Broome Centre for Local Government. And the area that's not been talked about enough has been the commercial and industrial waste, particularly for the small, medium-sized, smaller businesses, which have found it very, very difficult indeed to get their waste, particularly recycled waste, collected properly. And I think at the moment, because there is a review going on of waste strategy, there actually is an opportunity to be able to really, do something about getting some of the policy changed. We are one of the few countries in Europe that do separate or have had this kind of attitude that commercial and industrial waste is separate from sort of household. It is all a waste as a resource wherever it comes from, and it all has to be.
Could I ask you to? Have you got a question?
What I'm wanting to hear is community facility, community take that fine, but what are we actually going to do realistically about tackling the commercial and industrial waste?
Okay, thank you, gentleman there.
Hi, Julian Kirby from Friends of the Earth. I've got a couple of comments with which I'm interested in views.
Can you keep them short and have a question, please? Because we've got people who want to ask.
The planning issue, and of course there are always NIMBY problems, but it's simplistic to say it's always NIMBYism. People have genuine concerns about climate change, about the loss of materials, the value of materials that happens through incineration, and those are the people who are holding up a lot of these incinerator applications on, we would say, very good reason. So I'm trying to keep this brief. So
yes, please. Thank you.
The region of Flanders has about 75% recycling rate at the moment. Now, and they're trying to push that further. You've given an example of Malmo, one of you, and there are other areas around Europe where they have reasonably high recycling compared to here, but it's not going any higher. And that is almost certainly because incineration stops it going further. Come back again to the points I said earlier on around climate, around resources. The important thing is to be making the best of our resources and making the best attempt to bring down our impact on the climate.
Do you have a question?
I'm interested in comments on this. And then the last point to Rob there, very quickly. Interested in the 60% figure, if you could explain that a bit more. Now, I'm genuinely curious on the evidence behind this. Now, there is some of my colleagues in different groups that work on waste say that they've asked for data from RecyleBank on how you've measured improvements and that kind of thing, and they haven't been able to get it. So I was wondering if there are data protection reasons that you wouldn't want to share it, or whether or not that's not the case.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I take a quick question from you as well?
I'll put it into context. I'm from Derby. The name's Lucy Cllr. We have had a long history of trying to set up a plant which would be originally a gasification. It's now a waste management, waste receipt plant, slightly lower technology but still advanced technology. The problem we've had has been the community and particular elements within the community, and in hindsight I would have said that we needed to start by really sharing the issue of waste disposal with the community so that the community could own the problem. And I just wondered how many businesses have actually started at the point of saying, just imagine what your street would be like if we didn't collect your waste every week. Where is that waste going? To take key people of the community, not just councillors, to actually have a look at waste facilities and landfill sites, and whether people have actually looked at it from that direction to publicise the problem before trying to explore the solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. Rob, do you want to pick up on your
cool. Thank you. Julian, your point was about the increase that we experienced in Halton and how it was measured. I think the first thing I want to point out is that the data that sits behind that belongs to Halton Borough Council, not RecyleBank. So from that perspective, I am slightly guarded by what I can say because it's not my data to talk about. You'll understand that from a
Why did they other cases and American experience as well?
So our typical measurement is looking at an independent baseline and looking at the individual, then up to an aggregated level, impact against that baseline. So a typical average year's baseline, so we take into account the peaks and the troughs of Christmas and summer when people go away and so forth. And then we're measuring the level of recycler off of that baseline. That is our very pure and simple measure from a recycling point of view.
Okay.
That's the methodology.
Brilliant, thank you. David, do you want to touch on commercial waste?
Yeah, I'll do that, because you picked up two very interesting points. First, it's commercial waste, and not to correct you, but it's 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 C&I waste, 1/3 municipal waste is the statistic. Yeah, I think because the driver has been the LAT system originally in the public sector, you had a major movement by the public sector to improve. The public sector has improved dramatically. You have to give them big credit for the work they've done. It's changed slightly, so you have all the emphasis on the public sector. Now we come back to the issue of planning. Why, when we look at PFI systems that we put in, or PFI structure that we do, the planning or the scaling of the plants are only for the municipal waste, and a small fraction for any form of what we term merchant facilities, for whatever type of facility, whether it's energy from waste, whether it's anaerobic digestion, whether it's a material recovery facility. It's only scaled for that, and I think you're absolutely right that we've made a mistake in the UK because we were pushed that way through the LATS system, and we weren't allowed to look at the long-term benefits of having a more holistic approach for infrastructure that can deal with lots of different contributions. It's far more effective in terms of economics to have plants which can deal with both. So I think you make a very valid point. I think we've missed a bit of a trick there in the UK, driven by a particular form of legislation. Perhaps it's been overtaken by landfill tax now a little bit, so we have another driver entering there. In terms of the commercial waste, we do more and more work with small, medium and large size businesses. I think the large size businesses have already made the change. I think there's, again, come back to infrastructure, there's some need for more infrastructure to allow that change to accelerate. In terms of small and medium sized companies, the small, I think, are affected by the economics of the situation. Landfill tax is a very useful instrument in order to change behaviour. When you have one container, it becomes more difficult. And I think there is a tipping point in terms of splitting your waste, which is coming. We have about 40,000 customers, 25, 30,000 of those are very small, and we constantly push to make the change, and more change to recycling. But I think the smaller you are, the more difficult it is financially to make that change. I think landfill tax will generate a difference of opinion. So I think it's a timing issue rather than anything else. It's not certainly a behavioural issue.
I'll be very quick. On commercial and industrial, you're absolutely right, and it's our third recommendation in our report. On the question at the back, yeah, recycling, obviously, if we get 60-70%, that would be amazing. I think recognising that you're never going to be able to recycle absolutely everything, you then decide what you do with the rest. And incineration over landfill.
You can read. I mean, I can give you a good example. In Rochford, one of our councils, which Eric Pickles visited recently, they do 67% already. So they're long on the way to what people are terming as zero waste, 70%. There is a residue. We have a chronic shortage of energy in the UK, as you probably are aware of. I certainly think I see no reason not to take energy as a resource. Certainly the Scandinavians and also our Dutch colleagues have the highest rates of recycling, but they also take energy because they understand that they need energy.
Yes, on commercial waste, yes, I think we really just need to look at the legislation, and we need to make sure that it's reflected, so it needs to be easier for businesses to recycle, and it must be factored into the overall amount of waste we're putting out, and that businesses should be leading the way in terms of showing how good they are on recycling and so on. And on the whole waste management issue, I think we just need to go right back to that waste pyramid, where you should be minimising first of all, trying to avoid creating waste, and then reusing it, and then recycling it, and then if you have to, sort of getting rid of it in less environmental friendly way. So that, I think we just need to go to quote the phrase back to basics on that waste triangle.
Okay, well, I'm happy to take one last round if there is anyone, but can I please have a question? Just one? Two? Promise it's just questions? Okay, I'll take you three, and I'll cut you off in a harsh manner if you don't ask a question. Start with that gentleman then.
I pick up your cue, it's a question. My name is Fred George and I've worked in the waste and recycling industry for 20 years. The question is for David. The slight preamble is based on what you're saying there, David, about planning blockages. I would put to you, as well as one of the big issues that's always held up the industry is that communities are never convinced that you mean it when you talk about achieving very high levels of recycling. And Robert talked about 60 or 70% being amazing. I would say it's not amazing. I'd say it's eminently achievable in this country, being achieved in many other European countries as well. The question is, wouldn't you have a better chance of getting community support and planning approval for the sorts of infrastructure that you want to deal with the residue if communities could see that you and the rest of the industry were serious in working with them and with local government, almost in a covenant, to achieve the sort of 65, 70, 75% levels of recycling that could be achieved?
Okay, thank you. Lady there.
It was Inga Lockington, I'm Ipswich Borough Councillor, and it was about the chip in the bin and the incentive for people. I don't know, but I just could imagine some residents who, low income, have got lots of spare time, walking down the high street, picking up lots of Argos catalogue, lots of heavy stuff, putting in their blue bin and earning money that way. Am I just absolutely silly and expecting the most? But have you ever come across that people could actually really fill up their bins and get money that way, or send whatever tickets for something or other?
Okay, thank you very much. And last question.
I think there's a danger of sort of replacing thinking that dirty word politics and the so-called bureaucratic planning system is blocking progress, and we all know that progress is burning all this waste. I mean, if people don't want an incinerator in their communities, I think we should listen to them, and incentives, maybe an incentive direct, bung 100 quid a year, they've still got an incinerator in their community, bringing in several hundred lorries a day each way. Shouldn't there be emphasis at looking at other facilities that may be more palatable through the planning, a democratic system that people can support, so other facilities such as mechanical and biological treatment, which bring out use the resources more, other autoclaving.
I'd like to answer that. Do you realise that the communities reject those types of facilities as well? Do you realise that?
I know they do.
They do, anaerobic digestion, material recovery facilities, composting, everything is rejected. It's not just incineration at all. We deal with planning on a daily basis, and I tell you that is rejected across the country in that manner, sadly.
Would you like to answer that gentleman's question?
I think it's a good question, a difficult question from Ray. Are we genuine? I believe we are genuine. I think there's an absolute genuine change in the industry that realises that the picture I painted to you earlier, we can't continue with that picture. It's a waste of resources that are be taken in material, which the majority can be, whether it's taken in energy. We have to connect with communities. I think we have to do a lot more. Here comes, the dilemma for us as a service provider. We can only do that in partnership with other people. We have to have the local authority, we have to have the politicians on side, we have to have the ability to go into the communities to be able to speak to them, and we're not against, and we do vast amounts of community liaison now in order to speak to them about all the different types of infrastructure we want to put in. We need to try harder. I think you're right, Ray.
Thank you. Rob. Phone books and chips.
Phone books and chips. Well, I've had three of them. We have 5 C's. We have 5 C's in RecyleBank, and we've had cheating, we've had chips, and consumption. I'm just waiting for the other 2 to come up, but it looks like
I'll cut them off on the breath.
I mean, it's a relevant point, and it's a concern. I mean, the first thing is that if you have soggy phone books, bricks, bottles filled with water, yes, of course, it will increase the weight of the bin. The reality is that there's 2 things in play. First of all operatives are sanity checking those bins when they're going on the back of the truck. If there is any evidence that there's been some form of malpractice, we write to people and say, you may have got confused. The second time round, it gets a little bit stronger, and the third time round, it's a 3 strikes and out policy. The third time round, we actually withdraw the invitation to participate. There's no evidence so far in the UK, because I came in exactly the same route about 15 months ago. There's no evidence that people are twisted enough, if you like, to work the system in that sort of relationship. And we have the cap on points anyway. That means that if somebody is doing it and for some reason it does slip through the system, we're able to monitor that. I think on our last count, less than 0.25% of people were actually hitting that cap once in their lifetime being a RecyleBank member. That could potentially happen for an absolute bona fide reason, but we have a number of fail-safes in check to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Rose, would you like to make any final comments?
No, I think it's pretty much covered.
Okay, good. Robert? Okay, well, thank you all very much indeed. Thank our panellists, Robert, David, Ros and Rob, and thank you all very much indeed for your contributions, and to Sita for sponsoring the event. Thank you very much.